is taking a cut of everything that you do. So when you're in the fold, when you're in the club and everybody's getting a piece of everything, your tour, your publishing, any endorsements, and when they're getting a piece of all of that, you will have hit records. The moment you step away from that and you want to, in fact, take control of your own life, your own experience, then you'll find you're not happy.
Memphis has weathered its share of storms, but nothing shook the city like November 17th, 2021. Middle of the day, clear as truth, and one of the realest to ever breathe, Southern Hustle walked into Makita's homemade butter cookies for a familiar order and never walked back out. Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., known to the world as Young Dolph, was ambushed in broad daylight, struck by a hail of bullets that left no doubt. This wasn't a warning, it was an execution. Surveillance cameras told the story frame by frame. A white Mercedes pulls up. 2 masked men jump out, long guns in hand, and open fire. 22 rounds tear through glass walls and, ultimately, the hope of a city that had watched Dolph turn independence into empire. No alleys, no shadows, just the cold certainty of a hit carried out where everyone could see it. For Memphis, Dolph was more than a rapper. He was a blueprint, self-made, self-owned, a man who built paper route empire without bowing to gatekeepers. He gave back, put people on, and moved with a blend of grit and grace that made the hood proud. That's why the murder didn't feel like another headline. It felt like a message, and it demanded an answer. Who wanted him gone, and why?
Tidal was standing alone as the only streamer to have access to the icon's music. The Prince estate is now suing Jay-Z's Roc Nation for copyright and...
Investigators moved fast. Within months, 4 names surfaced, and the arrest began. Justin Straight Drop Johnson and Cornelius Smith, identified as the alleged triggermen tied to the white Mercedes and the weapons. Hernandez Govan, painted by authorities as the organizer who stitched the plan together. And Jamarcus Johnson, Justin's half-brother, accused of helping with the getaway and the payoff. On paper, the puzzle pieces were lining up. But on the streets, nobody believed the picture was complete. Because this kind of murder doesn't grow in isolation. It grows from history, years of tension, ego, money, and music tangled into something sharper than lyrics. To understand why Dolph died where he bought cookies, you have to rewind to a rivalry that outgrew the booth. Young Dolph versus Yo Gotti. What started as business interest turned sour when Dolph rejected an offer, choosing to build his label, his way. From there, the energy curdled. Subliminals became direct shots, then full-on disrespect. Most infamously on Dolph's 2017 track, Play With Yo B Chick. A record that tore past rap politics and hit the personal nerve nobody can ignore. When music is tethered to real crews, real money, and real reputations, diss records don't just chart, they ricochet. In 2017, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was sprayed with over 100 shots in Charlotte. Months later, he was critically wounded in Los Angeles. He survived both. But survival in that world doesn't always change the math. It only delays the reckoning. To understand why Young Dolph's death sent such a chill through the city, you have to rewind to where the tension first took root, years before that white Mercedes ever pulled up to Makita's. The story of Dolph and Yo Gotti is more than a rap feud. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when pride, power, and paper collide in a city that takes respect seriously.
Prince in the Revolution Parade. I'm sorry. That's it.
The last thing that bothered him was the passing of his favorite artist, Prince. D'Angelo said that he was told that Prince was set up by Jay-Z.
Back in 2014, Memphis was already divided into camps. Yo Gotti, born Mario Mims, had built his CMG label into a powerhouse, representing the polished, mainstream side of the city's hustle. Young Dolph was the opposite, raw, independent, and allergic to authority. He sold mixtapes hand to hand, built paper route empire brick by brick, and made it clear he wasn't signing to anyone. When Gotti approached Dolph with an offer to join CMG, it should have been a business win for the city, 2 Memphis Titans aligning. Instead, it turned into a spark that lit a decade-long fire. Dolph turned him down, and from that moment on, everything changed. Bruh went from being my #1 fan to my biggest hater, Dolph tweeted in 2016. That one sentence summed it up. What started as opportunity became animosity. In Memphis, ego is currency and rejection is personal. Dolph's refusal wasn't just a business decision. It was a statement that he didn't need anyone's cosign, not even the city's reigning heavyweight. The response came fast. Gotti and his crew started throwing subliminals, then direct disses. Dolph fired back with full force. His 2016 album, King of Memphis, wasn't just music. It was a declaration of dominance. He was telling the city, and Gotti, that there was room for only one king, and he wasn't moving off his throne for anyone. Then came the real blow. Play with Yo Beej. Dolph didn't just diss Gotti, he humiliated him. The track's cover art mocked missed calls from Gotti's ex, and the video featured a Gotti lookalike being clowned on camera. That wasn't rap beef anymore, that was disrespect. In the streets, a line like that doesn't fade with the beat. It lingers in the air like smoke, demanding retaliation. The fallout was immediate. In February 2017, during the CIAA tournament in Charlotte, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was ambushed by gunmen who unleashed over 100 rounds. He walked away untouched, protected by armor and luck. 7 months later, in Los Angeles, his luck ran thin. Outside a Hollywood hotel, Dolph was shot multiple times and left in critical condition. The LAPD briefly named Gotti as a person of interest before clearing him, but the connection was impossible to ignore. One of Gotti's associates, Corey McClendon, was arrested for attempted murder and later released without charges. By the time young Dolph was murdered in November 2021, the streets already sensed the storm brewing. The previous shootings, the disrespect, the tension between Paper Route Empire and CMG, it all felt like unfinished business waiting for a trigger. And when those 22 shots echoed through Makita's cookie shop, Memphis knew immediately. This wasn't random. This was a mission. But the mission wasn't clean. Within months, investigators rounded up 4 suspects whose stories didn't line up with the idea of a calculated, high-level assassination. Instead, the picture forming looked messy, amateurish even. Yet the stakes were enormous. The suspects were Justin "Straight Drop" Johnson, accused shooter; Cornelius Smith, accused second shooter; Hernandez Govan, accused mastermind who allegedly coordinated the hit; Jamarcus Johnson, accused of helping the shooters flee and distribute payment. The arrests answered one question: who pulled the trigger? But opened a dozen more about who ordered it, who funded it, and who benefited from Dolph's death. For nearly 3 years, the city waited. And then, in September 2024, the courtroom doors finally opened. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. Everyone with ties to Memphis hip-hop, from fans to OGs to industry insiders, watched every update like it was the Super Bowl. The case wasn't just about justice, it threatened to pull powerful people into the spotlight. The prosecution came out swinging: surveillance footage of the white Mercedes, cell tower pings placing Johnson and Smith near the scene, ballistics linking the weapons, text messages and calls between the defendants. But none of it hit harder than one man's decision to flip. Cornelius Smith turned state's witness. In a move that shook the streets, Smith admitted he was involved, but he didn't stop there. Under oath, he claimed the hit was bigger than him and straight drop, pointing the finger toward a name that froze the courtroom: Anthony Big Jook Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother. According to Smith, Big Jook put $100,000 on Dolph's head. He said the bag was supposed to be split. $40,000 for him, $40,000 for Justin Johnson, $20,000 for Govan. Smith also claimed he and Johnson met with Big Jook before the murder to plan it, and FaceTimed him afterward to confirm the job was done. And if that wasn't enough, he testified that someone from the CMG circle later dropped $50,000 toward his legal fees. The courtroom erupted. Social media lit up. Memphis held its breath. The implications were nuclear. If true, this meant the plot stretched far beyond street soldiers, into the upper structure of one of the city's biggest rap empires. But Smith was a compromised witness. The defense attacked hard, revealing a jailhouse letter where Smith allegedly told family members he'd say whatever to save himself. They hammered the contradictions. Smith said he was promised $40,000, but only got $800, a detail so sloppy it made the alleged conspiracy look disorganized, not elite. Despite all doubts, the jury convicted Justin Johnson on all counts. He received life in prison, eligible for release at age 81, a sentence that effectively ended his life in the free world. But while the verdict closed one chapter, Smith's testimony blew the entire story wide open. Because the streets wanted to know, if Big Jook funded the hit, who else knew? When Cornelius Smith pointed his finger toward Anthony Big Jook Mims, the courtroom didn't just shift, it cracked open. Big Jook wasn't some random street figure. He was Yo Gotti's brother, a man deeply woven into CMG's operations, respected and feared in equal measure. If Smith was telling the truth, the hit on young Dolph reached far higher than anyone expected. And if he was lying, he was playing with the kind of fire that burns entire cities down. But the streets never got the chance to hear Big Jook's side of the story, because he was already dead. In January 2024, just 10 months before Smith's testimony, Big Jook was executed outside a Memphis restaurant during a repast, a gathering after a funeral. Broad daylight again, multiple shots, a public killing in front of his mother. No arrests, no witnesses talking, no answers. The timing was too sharp to ignore. Some said it was retaliation for Dolph. Others said it was internal. A few whispered that it was a cleanup job, a way to silence someone who knew too much before the courts got their hands on him. But in Memphis, rumors move faster than bullets, and proof rarely keeps up. What Big Jook's death did accomplish, without question, was this. It permanently erased the only man who could confirm or deny the allegations Smith made. And that made the unanswered questions even louder. Meanwhile, another major figure, Hernandez Govan, who prosecutors claimed was the mastermind, fought his case fiercely. Despite the narrative surrounding him, alleged ties to CMG, social media photos with Gotti and Jook, and whispers about his role, Govan refused a plea deal. He pleaded not guilty and took his chances with a jury. In August 2025, he was found not guilty. His acquittal sent shockwaves through Memphis. Some said the prosecution overreached. Others said he knew things the city would never hear. But the verdict left the narrative fractured. If the alleged mastermind wasn't guilty, then whose plan was it? And who actually set the wheels in motion?
My heart and spirit, and I wanted to make a change and move to a new plateau in my life. And one of the ways in which I did that was to change my name. It sort of divorced me from the past and all the hang-ups that go along.
The fourth defendant, Jamarcus Johnson, chose a different path. He took a plea deal in 2023, admitting to helping the shooters after the murder. His testimony supported parts of Smith's version, including text messages where Smith asked about Big Jook. But he too had motive to please prosecutors and minimize his sentence. Every answer opened another door. Then came the detail that complicated everything. Smith testified that someone connected to CMG paid $50,000 toward his legal fees. He didn't name the person, said he couldn't, but the claim implied structure, resources, and an interest in protecting the shooters. Was it true? Was it street generosity? Was it a lie? Was it damage control? No one could say for sure, and hovering over all of it was the number that everyone couldn't stop talking about. The supposed $100,000 bounty on Dolph's head, compared to the $800 Smith claims he actually received. That gap was so absurd, it made even seasoned street veterans squint. If a powerful organization really ordered the hit, why pay pennies to the men who risked everything? Why move so sloppy? Why leave a trail of contradictions? Or, and this was the chilling possibility, was the operation never as polished or organized as people assumed? Was it ego and street impulse, not corporate strategy and precision? By the time Justin Johnson was sentenced to life, the truth was more tangled than ever. Some players were dead, others were locked up, others were walking free. And the biggest name in the conversation, Yo Gotti, remained untouched, uncharged, and silent. As the courtroom dust settled, a new wave of questions began tearing through Memphis. Not about what happened, but why it happened the way it did. Because the deeper people looked into the details, the more the story stopped making sense. And nowhere was that confusion louder than in the money. Cornelius Smith testified that $100,000 was put on young Dolph's head, a life-changing amount for most street dudes. Yet according to him, after carrying out one of the most high-profile murders in Memphis history, he received $800, not $40,000, not even a few thousand, just $800, $500 up front, $300 later. That discrepancy cracked the whole narrative open. If $100,000 was truly available, and if CMG-affiliated figures supposedly had access to tens of thousands more for legal fees, how did the actual shooters walk away with pocket change? In the streets, when a mission this dangerous goes unpaid, retaliation usually follows. Rage follows. Betrayal follows. Yet instead of lashing out, Smith testified against his own co-defendant, risking the label of snitch forever. It didn't add up, and that's what had people thinking. Was the $100,000 bounty real, or a story inflated to secure a plea deal? Was Big Jook actually involved, or was his name used because he wasn't here to defend himself? Did someone help with legal fees? Or was that just another desperate claim to win favor with prosecutors? Even prosecutors acknowledged Smith's testimony had holes. The defense presented a letter Smith allegedly wrote from jail, admitting he'd say anything to avoid dying behind bars. Under normal circumstances, that would have obliterated his credibility. But with the video, the ballistics, and the cell tower data pointing toward Johnson, the jury didn't need Smith to be perfect. They just needed him to be believable enough. Still, the money issue raised legitimate doubts. If this were a professional hit ordered by a powerful organization, you'd expect clear payments, clean communication, airtight planning, and shooters who actually get what they were promised. Instead, the blueprint looked sloppy, chaotic, uncoordinated, almost as if someone far lower on the hierarchy made moves without real backing or without thinking through the consequences. Which brings everything back to Big Jook's 2024 murder. If he truly ordered the hit, then the streets had their answer and delivered their own form of justice. But if he didn't, if he was working independently, if someone used his name, if he died before clarifying anything, then his death didn't bring closure. It only buried the truth.
He came to me. I didn't even have the nerve to call him and say, like, he came to me and said, I know what you're doing. I'm going to give you all of my work.
Meanwhile, investigators continued tugging at every loose thread. The alleged CMG attorney connection, the old shooting involving Black youngster, the hush money rumors, the timing of payments, the contradictions in testimony, the silent players with a lot to lose. But after months of digging, the public answer was the same. No direct evidence tied Yo Gotti to the murder. No texts, no calls, no meetings, no money trail. Only whispers, none strong enough to stand in court. And that left the city torn between two possibilities. Either the conspiracy was real, or the story was built on fear, speculation, and the words of men trying to outrun prison time. By the time the final gavel dropped and the courtroom emptied, one reality became painfully clear. We might never know the full truth about who ordered young Dolph's murder. Justin Johnson was convicted. Cornelia Smith cooperated. Govan walked free. Big Jook was taken out before he could testify. And Yo Gotti, the name the streets whispered the most, was never charged with a single crime. That's the kind of ending that keeps a city haunted. Because behind every testimony, every rumor, and every headline lies a simple fact. Too many key players are dead, locked up, or unwilling to talk. The story remains cracked open, bleeding questions that no one seems ready or alive to answer. One piece of the puzzle that still rattles the streets is the alleged $50,000 payment toward Cornelia Smith's legal fees. If someone truly dropped that kind of money, it suggests coordination, not chaos, but the details are murky. Smith couldn't name the source. No paperwork surfaced. No one stepped forward. It could have been someone high up. It could have been a friend trying to keep him afloat. Or it could have been a lie crafted in desperation. Then there's the huge gap between the alleged $100,000 bounty and the $800 Smith claims he actually received. That alone destabilizes the entire narrative. A murder with national consequences shouldn't look this sloppy. A professional hit shouldn't feel this unorganized. A coordinated conspiracy shouldn't fall apart over pocket change. Unless the operation was never what people imagined. Unless someone used powerful names to mask a personal vendetta. Unless the shooters were manipulated or abandoned by the very people they believed they were serving. And then, Big Jook's murder. Killed outside a Memphis restaurant in January 2024 in front of his own mother at a repast, a symbolic place and time for a symbolic hit. Was it revenge for Dolph? Was it retaliation for internal betrayal? Was it someone tying loose ends? No one knows, and with no arrests, the silence says everything. His death didn't bring closure. It erased a witness who could have exposed or absolved some of the most powerful names in Memphis. That silence echoes louder than any evidence the courts ever found. Young Dolph's murder now stands as a tragic collision between rap, ego, money, and the brutal reality of street politics. It's a reminder of how thin the line is between entertainment and actual bloodshed. Lyrical warfare becomes literal warfare when the men behind the mic come from worlds where disrespect has consequences and where pride can get you killed faster than bullets. In the end, Dolph lost his life, his shooters lost their freedom. Big Jook lost his future, and an entire family's lost fathers, sons, and brothers. Over pride, over power, over a story the world may never fully understand. What remains is legacy, Dolph's music, his independence, his impact on Memphis, and the cautionary truth that not every feud is for entertainment. Some wars have casualties long after the final shot is fired. And as for the unanswered questions, they'll stay where so many truths in Memphis end up, buried with the men who could have told them. If you found this deep dive powerful and eye-opening, make sure you hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories that dig beneath the headlines and uncover the real narratives shaping hip-hop culture.